break inside your head to get a hold of yourself. But it's over now. I was missing everything and I forgot I felt. So many days I found, many questions I have I can't answer myself. And I just don't know how to make it right. Instead I live with things I never would tell. Never tell. All the good and bad things quickly pass me by. I don't know what I miss till I open my eyes. And I can see it all. I can feel it all again. Hope I don't lose control. And repeat this all again.
Hey, and good evening, everybody. It's Monday, January 5th, 2026. I am your host, Stephen Joyce, and I am part of the Bet Boys. Welcome to both ends of the table. As you can see right now, I'm by myself. Unfortunately, Cisco and Luke could not make it to the show tonight. They are, well, one's out of town and the other one's wrapped up in some classes. So maybe we'll get them on Friday night show, but just wanted to cover a few topics tonight and just wanted to see what everyone's doing tonight. So welcome in, welcome in. I'm trying to get some things going here. If you can just bear with me here. And let's see if this works. Hopefully people can hear. Hopefully people can see. But anyways, man, so we've officially reached the end of the road, guys. It's NFL week 18 is come and gone, and what a ride it was. But before we get into the madness, we just want to thank everyone who's been rocking with us since day one. As some of y'all know, we started this podcast right before the season kicked off, and we've been going live every single week, giving you our unfiltered opinions, our hot takes, and sometimes just completely unhinged reactions. And all while looking at it from both ends of the table. So if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and stay tapped in. Because if this season has taught us anything, it's that the chaos doesn't take an off season. Now let's talk about this season, 2025-2026 NFL season, because the league was truly the gift that kept on giving. We saw teams that penciled into the Super Bowl that missed the playoffs entirely. We saw trades that will make franchises and trades that will just absolutely cost their GMs their jobs. We saw teams that had no business being complete competitive, but then suddenly they turned into complete contenders. And hi, Snowy VR. I'm not sure who you are, but hello, welcome to the show. But there's just some highs and some lows, whiplashes, confusion, existential dread just from this NFL season. For some of you, your team's still alive and they're going out to chase for that ring. But for others, oh, Christopher, hey, what's up, man? How you doing, man? You doing all right? But for others, man, your team isn't in the playoffs, and if your team's anything like mine, you just want to see a little bit of effort, right? Like at least pretend that you're trying to win some football games. But then there are some moments where none of us could even comprehend what the hell was even happening. Like the Carolina Panthers making the playoffs with the losing record. I'll say that again slowly. The 8-9 Panthers are going to the playoffs. Not only that, though, they're facing the Rams, a team that they've already stunned in week 13 by beating them 31-28. So if you're asking yourself if this makes any sense, the answer is no, not even a little bit. And if this season has taught us anything, it's simple: expect the unexpected, always. Because at some point this year, nobody knew who to bet on anymore. I'm convinced that bettors across the globe are just even questioning every decision that they've ever made. I mean, think about it like this: the Rams lose to the Falcons last week. They were 7-point favorites. How does that happen? Why? Who even approved that script? But yeah, it's been that kind of a season. I mean, if you told me that week one that George Pickens would be traded to the Cowboys and finish third in the league in receiving yards, I wouldn't have believed you. If you'd have told me that the Jets, a team who had one of the best defenses last year, would finish the entire season without a single interception, I wouldn't have believed you. If you told me that Jamar Chase would be catching passes from Joe Flacco this season, wouldn't have believed you. And if you told me that the Houston Texans, who started the season off 0-3, would still make the playoffs, wouldn't have believed you. But as we look back on the season, we just want to slow it down and then highlight some of the moments that really stood out: the good, the bad, the completely ridiculous stuff. So coming up, we're going to break down, or I'm going to break down the 10 things from the season that just stood out to me that I think that absolutely nobody saw coming. And if you want to just kind of leave your opinions in the chat, that would be that'd be great. And so Cisco, yes, Boswell missing that extra point. That was pretty crazy. Not gonna that was just an awesome game. But Boswell missing the extra point, and then you got Loop that missed the game winning field goal, misses it wide right. I mean, just absolutely crazy. But anyway, so we're gonna start with number 10, because that takes us all the way back at the beginning of the season. The Cowboys sent shockwaves through the media by sending edge rusher Micah Parsons to the Green Bay Packers. Um, Jerry Jones got 2 first-round picks out of it. That was great. But everyone thought he was retarded for doing the whole thing. But he doubled down. He said that they're better off. And that turned out to be just a crock of shit because, as we all know it, the Green Bay Packers finished this season with a top 15 defense. They got the 7th seed. They're in the playoffs, while the Cowboys finished with the 30th ranked defense in the league, and they missed the playoffs. And it all seemed too good to be true. But that's why Jerry's a billionaire, and we're all sitting at home on our couches wondering how we're going to recover financially from Christmas, right? So, Cisco, what you think about that one, man? You still bumming out on that trade? I know you're in there somewhere. But then we're gonna go to number 9 here, right? The Cincinnati Bengals. To me, this was at my number 9 right here. The Cincinnati Bengals. They start off the season 2-0 for the first time in 5 years, only to have Joe Burrow go down with the turf toe injury. And at the time, we didn't even know what turf toe really was. I mean, people were making fun of it. They were laughing about it. There was a meme that went out. People started dubbing it the toe burrow. Um, and then just out of that injury, we saw the Bengals make a trade for Joe Flacco to try to help them stay in the hunt for the playoffs. And let me take a break here. Jerry Jones is doing absolutely amazing. Yeah, for a Phillies fan, he's making some really good moves. But anyways, man. So like I said, the Bengals, they traded for Joe Flacco to try to get them to stay into the hunt for the playoffs. Um, but the Bengals defense does what the Bengals defense does, and that's lose games. I mean, it's crazy to think that a 40-year-old Joe Flacco throws for 470 yards, 4 touchdowns, and in that game, the Bengals score 42 points. 30 of them came from Flacco, who had 4 touchdowns and a 2-point conversion. The other 12 points came from Evan McPherson, who was the kicker. So in a game where you score 42 points, your defense doesn't account for a single point. And then you lose the game because your defense let up 47 points to the Chicago Bears. I mean, that's just crazy. It's ludicrous. How is a defense just that bad where you can literally put up 42 points and lose the game in that sort of fashion? That, yeah, to me, like that's crazy. But moving on to number 8 is the Colts. The Colts, for those who never who didn't pay attention to the season, the Colts started off at 8-1. They shocked the planet when they benched Anthony Richardson first week for Daniel Jones. The Colts will then start the season off 8-1 and have the entire league on notice. Danny Dimes and Jonathan Taylor, they were being touted as potential MVP candidates, right? The Colts would then, though, they'd go off and they'd make a blockbuster trade. They trade for Sauce Gardner, but they give up 2 first rounders in the process, only to see Daniel Jones fracture his fibula right after the bye week. And then in that same week, tear his Achilles on the opposite leg. Total heartbreak for the entire season. Or, of course, so we thought, Riley Leonard steps in, kind of holds down the fort for a little bit, still loses the game, but then winds up getting hurt in that game as well. So your rookie quarterback gets hurt. Meanwhile, Anthony Richardson is unavailable because he broke his orbital bone in a freak accident training in the gym. Like that didn't make no sense. So I mean, what the hell do you do if you're the Indianapolis Colts? Well, you go out and sign a 44-year-old quarterback, Philip Rivers, who was literally coaching his son's high school football team. Let's just call him up. Let's see if he still wants to play. I mean, it can't hurt. You got nothing to lose at this point. You've already dropped a couple of games. Now you're on the verge of not even making the playoffs. So what the hell? And Philip Rivers came in. I mean, I don't think anybody could have predicted the way that Philip Rivers came in. The way that he was calling shots, calling plays, changing protection at the line. I mean, the dude, we talked about this last week. If he wasn't already a Hall of Famer, he definitely made the case for him to be first ballot. His time is, as y'all know, is going to get reset since he joined the league again. So he's got to wait another 4 years before he can become eligible for the Hall of Fame. But he's first ballot easily. I mean, the way that he made some of these quarterbacks who are half his age. I mean, mind you, these guys were like being born. They were babies when he was getting drafted to the NFL. Let that sink in for a little bit. These kids were babies when Philip Rivers got drafted in the NFL. It's just it's wild. It's wild to think about. And for him to come in and do what he did, the way that again, it's like the game never left him, or it's like he never left the game. And so what a crazy year for the Colts. I don't know where they go from here because they really don't have anywhere to go. They gave up 2 first round picks for Sauce Gardner, and it didn't work out in the end. They made some pretty big decisions there. I know Carly Ursay is obviously she's the new owner. She's the daughter of Jim Irsay, and so she's obviously trying to do her best to bring a championship. I mean, she's been on the field every single game. She's been in the practice facility. She's been completely involved with the team. So it's like I'm sure that they're going to be able to figure it out. They've already came out and said that or I'm sorry, that the coach and the GM Shane Ballard they're all coming back. They're not leaving, which I think that's the right decision to make. I mean, you think about the way that no one in their minds could have predicted that the season would have gone the way that it did. And again, you start off the season 8-1. You got Danny Dimes that is basically in a contract year because he only signed a 1-year deal with the Colts. and he comes out, he's looking like a stud. You got Jonathan Taylor looking like a stud that he usually looks like. But then it just kind of seemed like slowly but surely teams kind of started to figure them out. And once that kind of happened, it just everything kind of seemed to just spiral downhill from there. And so again, I don't know where they go. I think they obviously need to take a look at Riley Leonard because Riley Leonard looked pretty damn good yesterday against the Texans. And so they may or may not have something there with that kid, right? But it's going to take the offseason to figure that out. Obviously, they're going to need to figure out what they're going to do with Daniel Jones, and who knows, maybe they stick with Riley Leonard or with Riley Leonard and Daniel Jones. Yeah, Daniel Jones, and then maybe they trade away Anthony Richardson. I mean, he's been on the squad for a couple of years now. Um, they clearly didn't like him enough to start him this season. Otherwise, they would have. And so, if that's the case, why not get rid of him? I know the Raiders would potentially be looking at getting a quarterback. Obviously, they got the number one overall pick, but it's like, hey, if I don't know that this is necessarily the highest or the best quarterback class in college. So, do they really want to waste a first round pick on a quarterback that they're really unsure about? Or would you rather trade away a different pick, say a second or a third rounder, and get it Anthony Richardson in your on your team, and then see what happens from there? Right now, you can go spend your first round pick on something else that you might need. Right? Maybe a left tackle. Maybe you could use it on a or not a wide receiver, but maybe you could use it on an edge rusher, somebody to pair up Max Crosby with. That's if Max Crosby even stays at this point, because who knows what's going to go happen with there. But again, there's just so many different options and scenarios that I think that can happen. But definitely look out for the Colts to potentially trade away Anthony Richardson, so that way they can try to generate some sort of draft capital back since they gave away 2 first rounders to the Jets. But anyways, guys, so moving on to number 7, the thing that stood out to me the most and one of the craziest ones is Kansas City Chiefs not making the playoffs. Um, they were in the Super Bowl last season, and teams that make the Super Bowl, right, they have a 70% chance of making the playoffs the following season. And in all the years of football, there's only been 19 teams that have failed to make the playoffs the following year. And of those 19 teams, 12 of those failed to finish off the season with the 500 record. The Chiefs will become the 13th team in history to not finish with the 500 record or better the year after making the playoffs. In a league that has Patrick Mahomes, we almost don't even know what it looks like to see a playoffs without him in it. But obviously that'll change this year, and I couldn't be happier. I couldn't be happier. It's I'm just happy to see someone else go out there and chase it, someone else go out there and win it. Thank God. Because it was just getting so annoying to see these refs that were just glazing Mahomes for everything, calling penalties like crazy. And it's just like, dude, some of them, yes, okay. It's like, all right, we understand. But then when you got like, I mean, you're barely breathing on Mahomes and you're calling, a rough in the passer call, it gets a little annoying at that point, you know? And then it never fails that their games always come down to the final drive or the final play, and something always happens. A flag gets called or something of that nature, and then it just winds up, just making everybody mad. I mean, look at the Eagles game in the Super Bowl with the pass interference call on on Smith Schuster, right? We all know that that wasn't pass interference, or it wasn't a hold, whatever they decided to call it. That was ridiculous. But essentially that set up their chances of, that basically set up the win for them in the Super Bowl, and you just get tired of seeing it. And last season was just absolutely horrendous. I mean, you had people that were just creating videos and highlights every single week of just all the different penalties that were going against other teams and that were helping out Mahomes. And it's like, man, you're just it's unwatchable at this point. Essentially, that's what it was. It was unwatchable. And this season, you kind of saw the tides kind of turn, right? You saw a lot of penalties kind of go against the Chiefs, and it seemed like refs were kind of calling the games fair. I think you just had too many eyes that were paying attention to this. And I mean, it's not that people had a certain opinion about it, it's that there was literal facts to back up what everyone was talking about. There was literal facts to show how refs were basically giving them penalties to help them out to secure victories. And it's like when you start getting to that point, you can't hide it no more. What do you do from there? You have no choice but to call it fair, right? So, like I said, thank God that they're not in it. I'm happy, even though my team's not in it either. But it always makes for a beautiful year when you don't have to see Mahomes in the playoffs. And you don't have to see Tay Tay either. Cisco, how about that? And your team's still in it. What you think about that one, Pimp? But anyways, guys, we're gonna move on to number 6. So number 6, another crazy moment in the NFL, is the Ravens defense falling off the face of this earth. Now, I don't know what you guys think, but the Ravens start the season and they were the Super Bowl favorites by all betting apps and everywhere you can bet, Vegas, the whole Vegas odds, everything. They had the best odds to make the Super Bowl. And now they're not even going to make it to the playoffs. Cisco said on YouTube, "Go Birds, go Birds." But yeah, so the Ravens ain't gonna make it to the playoffs. This team, they didn't do what the defense normally does in Ravens history. I mean, think about when you think about the Ravens defense, I mean, obviously you think of Ray Lewis, right? And you think about how dominant he was and Reed and the guys, man. Like I mean, just the Ravens defense has always been hot. And it's like they really didn't lose nobody. They still had Roquan Smith, they still had Kyle Hamilton, right? They had Wiggins that they drafted from Clemson. There was a lot of good guys on this team still. Um, but when you think about it, right, the Ravens, I mean, if you'd have told me that the Ravens in the first 3 games score 40, 41, and 30, and that they'd be 1-2, I wouldn't have believed you if you told me that. I would have thought that they'd be 3-0, but that wasn't the case. That's not what happened. Not to mention that all this season, you think about the double-digit leads that were given up in the fourth quarter. No other coach has more of those than John Harbaugh. You saw Lamar Jackson riddled with multiple injuries throughout the season. Todd Monken forgot he has arguably the best running back of all time on his team because there was multiple disappearances from Derrick Henry in the fourth quarter. There were multiple games where Derrick Henry touches the ball less than 15 times. And I don't know how you do that with, again, with having the best running back damn near of all time that, people can argue that. They can make a case and they probably be right. And you just completely leave them out of the game in the fourth quarter. Doesn't make any sense. And in the thriller that they have last night, pretty much summed up the entirety of their season. And it's that you're good enough to compete, but not close. So the kicker loop, he misses that 44-yard field goal wide right that would have sent the Steelers on vacation. It would have inked themselves into the playoffs. Um, but that's not the case, man. Like I said, that one play right there summed up their whole season right there. Is that no matter how hard they fought, something was always getting in the way. Now, I don't blame Jackson for this particular loss. If you think about it, right? Lamar Jackson can be looked at a lot of different ways. I know there's a lot of people out there that could be blaming him for um just for some of the ways that he's played and that he's looked in the playoffs. But you think about last season, Mark Andrews dropping that pass in the last seconds of the game. I mean, that's a pass that Mark Andrews, or that's a catch that Mark Andrews is going to make 9 out of 10 times, probably 10 out of 10 times, honestly. But for some odd reason, the football gods just said, nope, you're dropping this one. And then last night, the 44 yarder, it's like, dude, you got Zay Flowers wide open down the field, hits him on back to back drives, mind you. And if you go back and look at it, they ran the same exact play twice. I don't know if anybody really paid attention to that, but they ran the same exact play twice. And that's how Zay Flowers was wide open. So they capitalize on that, on those defensive inefficiencies from Pittsburgh. And then obviously the defense lets up back to back touchdowns. So it's like, what the hell? Now they have to, yep, wide the F open. You're exactly right, Cisco. And so now they have to go back down the field, which Lamar Jackson gets them down there from an unlikely hero, Isaiah Likely. You like what I did there? Like what I did there? Yeah. Anyways, um, but yeah, dude. So he just gets them wide open, hits Isaiah Likely down the field, gets you set up, takes a snap to kill the clock, and then ask the kicker where you want the damn football. And he says right in the middle. So they place it right in the middle, and that ball just goes wide right. And that's because they were on the left hash before they did that. So if they would have just sent the kicker out there, there's a very good chance that that very same kick, had it the way it gone wide right, it probably would have went right through the uprights if they would have just left it on the left hash. That's what's even crazier, is it was that one extra snap to get positioned on the football of where the kicker wanted it. Crazy. But again, man, the Ravens are going home after being the odds-on favorite to make the Super Bowl. They're not even going to see a postseason, and that's crazy. To me, that's crazy. Does Lamar stay or leave? Lamar's going to stay. And just kind of looking at it, I think John Harbaugh is staying too. I don't think that they get rid of him. I mean, we talked about this 2 weeks ago. If you fire John Harbaugh, there will there will easily be at least 6 teams for sure, because there's 6 head coach openings already right now. Okay. There's 6 head coaching jobs that are open at the moment as we speak. I could argue that there would be double that amount of teams calling. There would be teams that have head coaches on their squad right now calling John Harbaugh, asking them, "Hey, do you want to come down and interview? Because we would fire our coach to hire you instead." I mean, literally. So I don't think Baltimore's that stupid. I mean, if they are, then boy, and who knows? I mean, the way that this NFL season has gone, I don't know that I would even be shocked at this point, just because of all the crap that's happened. So, but I doubt that he leaves. I think he's going to stay. In my personal opinion, I think that they do need to take a look at the defensive coordinator. Again, because the talent on the defensive side of the ball is way too good for them to be playing this bad. And so I think that they definitely need to look at a new DC, and potentially figure out what Todd Munkin's going to do. Like, I think they need to take a look at his game plan and really kind of ask him to make some changes in that particular thing as well. Because it's not that he's a bad play caller, but Cisco, I think you pointed this out, is that he likes to pass, and that doesn't always work out with a quarterback who likes to run. Not to mention, you have the best running back in the league, plain and simple. So it's not a recipe that kind of mixes very well. So I think that they should honestly look at either getting 2 new coordinators, or at least one, which I would definitely go on the defensive side of the ball and figure out what they need to do there. Well, the receiving core is still kind of fairly young. If you look at Rashad Bateman, he just got drafted just a few years ago, and then Zay Flowers just got drafted 2 years ago. So they're relatively young in the receiving core. Tight end wise, they're good. You got Mark Andrews and Isaiah Likely, and then in the backfield, you're doing a pretty good job. So I don't necessarily know that he need that the receiving core needs to be messed with. I think that they're doing fine all by themselves like that. And I think that when you add in a veteran like D Hop, I think that only makes you better because again he's by many considered an elite talent himself. I mean, albeit he doesn't play as many offensive snaps as he once did, like when he was with Arizona or with the Houston Texans. But make no mistake about it, that he's still a dog. He can still get it. You know what I mean? So, um, again, I think it goes down to just the offensive scheme. I think they need to change the scheme around, and it needs to be changed that supports hey Adams. Tell that to Luke. Tell that to Luke, dude. But again, I just think that it needs to be changed up that supports Lamar better, in my opinion. And then of course, I think there's some things that Lamar can kind of clean up too, like making his decisions a little bit faster, going through those progressions a little bit quicker, right? Having a game plan on who you're going to throw it to before you even snap the ball, right? Understand how to read that defense a little bit better. I never really see him make any checks at the line of scrimmage. I never see him change the protection. And I think that he doesn't do that because, and maybe he doesn't even know how to do it because he's so confident in his ability to escape the pocket if it collapses. He doesn't even bother to even looking to see, what sort of protection he might need. And so I think maybe getting him to sit down in the film room and really dissect some of these defensive matchups that he's seeing, I think that could help benefit him in the long run because you can't run forever. I mean, the dude's only going to get older and eventually the wheels fall off. So, look at Aaron Rodgers. I mean, Aaron Rodgers, he wasn't ever he wasn't going to sit there and be a rusher like the way that Lamar is, but he had the ability to escape the pocket. And when he did escape the pocket, boy, he was dangerous. His throws on the run, his ability to extend the play was unreal. But at 40 plus years old now, you look at him, he can't really escape out of the pocket like he used to. I mean, yeah, he got out on a couple of times last night, but that's not his repertoire anymore. Now he has no choice but to be a pocket passer. He's got to stay in that pocket. He doesn't have the ability to go running out anymore, especially after the Achilles tear. What do you expect him to do? So, anyways, that's my number 6. Like I said, it's the Rams, their defense falling off the face of this earth. Who knows what they do from here? Who knows if they make any trades? We'll see. Only time will tell. But let's move on to number 5. And that's the Browns quarterback controversy, also known as controversy for those who don't have a sense of humor. All right. The the Browns started off the season with Joe Flacco, who they signed during the offseason after letting him go 2 years ago when he led them to the playoffs before losing to the Houston Texans. They also signed Kenny Pickett, who was the backup quarterback to Jalen Hurts in the Super Bowl last year. They also drafted Dylan Gabriel and Shador Sanders. Mind you, this is all with Deshaun Watson still on payroll. So the quarterback carousel would start with Pickett getting traded to the Raiders. Flacco then starts the first 4 games. Then Flacco gets traded to the Bengals. And from there, that's when things start to really get loud in Cleveland because through it all, you saw Dylan Gabriel get all the reps with the ones, and Shador wasn't getting reps with the ones at all. He was having to play with the twos and the threes. So the entire world obviously wanted to see Shador get a start, just to see if this kid was capable, see what he had. And it was just week after week that Stefanski would give the media some lame ass excuse, about development. And it really got loud when he had to toss Shador Sanders in for Gabriel after Gabriel gets hurt, and it's literally like mid game, gets hurt, has to throw him out on the fly. The Browns end up losing the game afterwards, and the O line tells the media that they never heard his cadence before that time, before him taking a snap during the game. They never heard his cadence. And so it's no wonder why you're out of a job, my man. For those who don't know, Stefanski got fired. He's not the Browns head coach no more. And it was probably the best move. I mean, for sure it was the right move, but it's the best move that they could make. Now it's sad that Andrew Berry gets to keep his job because I think that Andrew Berry should be gone. I think anybody who is associated with Jimmy Sexton should absolutely not be inside the Cleveland Browns organization right now. I think that there was too much of him and his people going around, like Dylan Gabriel, Andrew Berry, Kevin Stefanski, and Lord knows who else. But there was too much of Jimmy Sexton going around in the Cleveland Browns organization that was prohibiting Shador Sanders from getting the shine. And it took up until the last few weeks of the season for everything to kind of fall into place. But by then, it's like, what are you playing for? You're already out of the playoffs. Your games are meaningless at this point. You're just taking extra reps at this point. So it's like, what do you do? And anyways, I'm glad he's out, but I think that the Cleveland Browns should absolutely get rid of Andrew Berry. I don't think that he makes the best moves in the world. Um, and I think that there's somebody else that could definitely do a better job. And I think that if you're trying to clean house coaching wise, then start from the top. Don't just go for the coach. Start from the top and really get rid of everybody. So, anyways, Cisco, did you see on TV today? Because I know you said that you were watching the sports channels or whatever. So I don't know if you saw, but the first person to come out to Stefanski's defense was Mr. Dan Orlovsky. Now, for those who don't know, okay, so Dan Orlovsky, obviously, he's an anchor on a lot of these or on a lot of these sports shows, right? He's a big portion of NFL Live. He also calls games from the booth, I believe, on like Monday Night Football or Sunday Night Football games sometimes. Um, and he's an ex-player. He played for the Colts and a couple of other organizations, and he's most notably known for running out of the back of his end zone during a play and causing a safety. That's what he's most infamously known for. But anyways, throughout this whole quarterback carousel, he's been the only one that has been defending Kevin Stefanski in this entire process. Throughout this entire season, he's been the only one. And obviously, we were wondering why. Why is he always defending him? He's making bonehead decisions, but yet you're the only one that's saying that they're great decisions. You're also the only one who would go on live television and lie to the American people by saying that backup quarterbacks never get one reps. They never get reps with the ones, with the starters. And that in all of your time of playing football and all the knowledge that you have, you've never once seen a backup quarterback get reps with the ones. But yet every single other analyst or anchor, whatever you want to call him, who's been on these shows, who all played football, all contradicted what you said and said, no, sir. We always game planned for the quarterback to go down, just in case. We always had 15 to 20 reps with the backup, just in case. So again, Why is he sitting there defending him? Why is he telling these lies? Well, guys, it's because they're represented by the same agent. Once again, Jimmy Sexton. So you have Dan Orlovsky, you had Kevin Stefanski, Andrew Barry, and you had Dylan Gabriel, who were all represented all by the same agent. So they're all sitting there holding each other's hands and trying to help each other out. When one's struggling, nah, hype it up, make it seem like he's the greatest guy ever. So what do? What does Dan Orlovsky do? Oh man, Dylan Gabriel's a great quarterback. He's great. He's great. Shador, I kind of really wasn't high on him. But man, Dylan Gabriel, great quarterback. Oh, Kevin Stefanski, he's not making bonehead decisions. He's not making bone. No, no, this is great. This is the right decision. No, it wasn't. But that's what you see. And it just kind of makes you wonder just how many of these other these sports media people, these personalities that are on TV, who are they all represented by? And then how often does this run through every single organization? I mean, especially from the top side. You had the general manager and the head coach. Those are the two guys making the most important decisions, and they're represented by the same guy. And you drafted a quarterback who is also represented by you. So guess who gets to start first? So, anyways, I'm glad that he's gone. Do I think that he should get a job right away as another head coach in the NFL? No. I never knew who Kevin Stefanski was before he was the head coach of the Cleveland Browns, and I doubt anybody else knew either. And in the 6 seasons that you were there, you didn't show us anything. You got rid of Baker Mayfield, and look at where Baker's at, thriving in Tampa Bay. Then you get a Deshaun Watson, who obviously we all know what happened with him, but you get a Deshaun Watson, and albeit he had some personal things going on in his life, he was never the same like he was in Houston. And even when all that was years past and we had all gotten over it, he still never amounted to anything. He couldn't draw up anything good. It took you having to pull in again a 38-year-old Joe Flacco sitting off of his couch to come in and run your offense. And then Dan Orlovsky has the nerve to go online and say, or go on air and say that, he's a really great coach when he has competent quarterback play. Well, what the hell does that mean? If everyone had Tom Brady, then everyone would be Bill Belichick. If everyone had Patrick Mahomes, they would all be the next Andy Reid. But it doesn't roll that way. You have to you have to develop those quarterbacks. You have to teach them what they don't know. That is your job as a head coach. So I think that that is a retarded statement to sit there and say that, well, he's a great quarterback when he has competent play. Well, of course, everybody does. Everybody is. But quarterbacks are not all equal. And it's not the easiest job in the world. If it was, everyone would have 70,000 yards passing. Every single quarterback would be at 5,000 yards passing every single year. No one would have interceptions. But damn it, it's a hard position to play. But it's up to you and your coaching staff to develop these kids into making them great players. And you have not shown your ability to do that, plain and simple. So, anyways, moving on. We're going to go to number 4, guys. We're going to go to number 4. So, Matthew Stafford. Obviously, he's having one of the greatest seasons a quarterback could want, right? But if you'd have told me that Matthew Stafford would lead the league in passing yards and touchdowns after him not playing the preseason and potentially miss games at the beginning of the season due to a serious back injury, I would have told you that you were nuts. But here we are at the end of the season, and Matthew Stafford leads the league with 4,700 yards passing, 46 touchdowns. Sorry to spoil it for you, Drake, but this is peak quarterback play and well deserving of the MVP. And since we're on the subject of Drake May, let's go to number 3, right? Because Drake May and the New England Patriots surge this year and take the AFC East crown for the first time since 2019 when they still had Tom Brady as their quarterback. This is a team that only won 4 games last year and now sits second in the AFC at 14-3, and they'll face the LA Chargers this Sunday night at 7 p.m. It's just a crazy turnaround that they've had. This is a team that won 4 games last season to now winning 14 games. That's a 10-game turnaround. They signed Mike Vrabel as their new head coach in the offseason. They pick up Stephon Diggs. And in just one season, they turn the entire franchise around. Now, some will say, which I'm one of them, that they're victims of their own success because they've had one of the easiest schedules in history. Um, Plain and simple. But no matter which way you look at it, it still takes a village to generate those wins. And that's exactly what they've been able to do is they've been able to generate those wins. And again, they're the number 2 seed in the AFC. They're looking strong. We'll see how they face or how they pair up, how they match up against some stiffer competition. And we'll just kind of go from there. I mean, personally, again, I think that I saw a lot of people that were talking about Drake May, being an MVP candidate. I think he's worthy of being a candidate. I just don't think that he deserves the MVP award, especially when you have somebody like Stafford. Stafford, they want to blame that. Oh, well, he's up there in age and this and that. Doesn't matter. Strength of schedule has to be taken into consideration. I mean, look at the division that Matthew Stafford is in compared to the Patriots. The Patriots, the only problem that they have is Buffalo. Miami's not going to give you no issues. The Jets surely ain't going to give you no issues. Not anytime soon. So you got one team to go up against versus the Rams. I mean, again, the division is just nuts. I mean, you're looking at the LA Rams, you're looking at the Seattle Seahawks and the 49ers. And even though the record doesn't show it, the Arizona Cardinals, they ain't all too bad. You know, crappy coaching, but still, nonetheless, I mean, that's you got two other opponents that you're going up against that have some of the best offenses and best defenses in the entire league, and you got to play them twice each. So I'm sorry, but Matthew Stafford is more than deserving of the MVP. He should win the MVP. And if by some reason Drake May gets the MVP, then I think that you'll see a lot of people really kind of throw their hands up in the air, and I think noise will get pretty loud because it's already being questioned enough as it is on how the MVP voting goes and what they look for. Because if you think about it last year, even though Josh Allen won it, a lot of people would argue that Saquon Barkley should have gotten it. And I would completely agree with you. A lot of people would argue that Lamar Jackson should have gotten it. And you wouldn't have been wrong. I think at some point, it's safe to say that maybe there is, or maybe there should be co MVPs, or maybe they should just kind of reconsider how they do it with their awards, and maybe take a page out of baseball's book. Right? They have MVPs for both leagues, the American and the National League. Maybe that's something that they should consider doing for the NFC and the AFC, because it's really tough to kind of break it all down, especially like last year when you got Josh Allen who did what he did, who did what he did, Lamar Jackson, least turnover quarterback of all time last season, and then Saquon Barkley with the 2,500 scrimmage yards, just absolutely insane. How could you not give it to all three of those guys? Again, you wouldn't have been wrong either which way you voted. But if you think about it this way, if you have an AFC MVP and an NFC MVP, Well, now that kind of helps things out a little bit. I mean, you already do an offensive player of the year. Well, what's different from an offensive player of the year to an MVP? The MVP always goes to an offensive player anyway. So is that not like having two MVPs in the first place? Just something to think about. But I think that that's something that they should do. I think they should really kind of separate that MVP conversation or separate the MVP award and make it an AFC and NFC kind of crown. And I think that that would help better. But also, too, they need to start looking at it from more than just a quarterback perspective. Because how could you not call Miles Garrett an MVP? I mean, arguably, again, one of the best athletes in NFL at this point in time. Or Cooper Cup when he won the Triple Crown Award. How would he not be the MVP? So there's just a lot of different things that a lot of different uh I guess angles that people are kind of, approaching from, and it makes you just kind of question like, hey, what are you guys really looking for? Because you only give it to the quarterback every single year. And sometimes the quarterbacks aren't always deserving of it. I mean, the quarterbacks are only as good as the receivers allow them to be too at the same time, right? You can have a really good quarterback, but if the receiver's constantly dropping the football, well, I mean, then how do you do that? Is that the quarterback's fault or is it the receiver's fault? Now, obviously, we're going to blame the receiver, but again, those are yards that the quarterback's going to lose, that he's not going to gain, or your drops, your touchdown passes that you drop, everything like that. It's all going to go downhill. So, anyways, that was my number 4 and my number 3. We're going to move on to number 2, and that's the game of the year. Seahawks versus the Rams. We're going to go to that game. It's December 18th, 2025, week 16 of the NFL season. Lumen Field, Seattle, Washington, Seahawks versus the Rams, a game that had 6 lead changes and had everyone on the edge of their seats. A game that came down to the very last play in overtime, where we saw Sam Darnold deliver a strike to tight end Eric Saubert to get the 2-point conversion. The Seahawks were down 30-14 in the fourth quarter, come all the way back and win 38-37 in overtime. This win gave the Seahawks the lead in the division and the number 1 seed in the conference. Matthew Stafford went off for 457 yards, 3 touchdowns, while Sam Darnold put up 270 yards, 2 touchdowns. Puka Nakua had 225 yards receiving to go along with 2 touchdowns. Kenneth Walker also finishes the game with 100 rushing yards, 64 yards receiving, and a touchdown. This game alone had over 1,000 yards from scrimmage, 48 first downs, 6 lead changes, and went into overtime. It doesn't get any better than that. That's right. That right there is why it is the game of the year, in my opinion. Now, if you have a different opinion, that's fine. Let me know in the comments what you guys think the game of the year was. Um, but otherwise, I'm going with week 16 Seahawks versus the Rams. And then lastly, folks, we're going to go to number 1, which we obviously mentioned it earlier. Miles Garrett getting the sack record. Last night, he got his 23rd sack of the season and etches himself in the history books as one of the greatest edge rushers of all time. He's a surefire Hall of Famer, and the guy's only 30 years old. And he's also been called out by most as the best NFL player in the league. And again, if the MVP wasn't an offensive award, he would most certainly be in the conversation. The thing is that you just hate to kind of see that he's on the Cleveland Browns. I mean, that I think is the most crappy part about the whole thing, because obviously their quarterback situations in shambles. They've never really had much of anything at the quarterback position outside of, again, a Baker Mayfield. Um, but regardless, his team went 5-12 on the season. And so obviously they're not making the playoffs. But given a talent like himself, I mean, why would you not want out of Cleveland and go somewhere where your talent's not going to be wasted? I think for me, that's the biggest thing right there. That's the probably the saddest part about his whole entire career, is that he'll most likely stay with the Browns. The Browns will never be any better than they are now. And He's going to go down as one of the greatest defensive players of all time on a team that nobody cares about, on a team that will never be talked about in the history books as having one of the best defenses or best offenses in the league. It's just going to be Miles Garrett, and that's it. So, what do you do? For me, I think that he should want out. I think that he should request a trade. You've already accomplished everything that you can in Cleveland, and things aren't getting any better. I think in his time, he's going to be going on his third, or if not his fourth head coach since he's been there. So you got to ask yourself, right? When you're on the backside of your career now, because now that you're 30, you officially hit that hump. You're on the backside of your career, and so do you really want to go through a rebuild at this point? Where you're sitting here figuring out another quarterback on top of this, you're figuring out another head coach who's gonna probably bring in a different defensive coordinator, who's gonna call things, a completely different way than what you're accustomed. Now you have to get adjusted to that scheme all over again, and you don't even know if it's gonna work, not to mention chances of you making the playoffs are still slim to none because of the division that you're in. They're not going away anytime soon. The Bengals, I doubt, are gonna get rid of Burrow, right? The Steelers, Tomlin doesn't lose no matter what. If even if when he's on the verge of losing, he figures out how to create some magical win that blows field goals to the right, so that way they don't lose. I think that's probably why they called in the priest to come bless that side of the field because they knew that they would wind up on that side of the field to end the game. And so again, Tomlin doesn't lose, and you got Joe Burrow, and then you got Lamar Jackson and the Bengals. You have to sit there and think about you have to go through those three teams in order to make the playoffs. And you are nowhere near that. So there you have it. Those are our top 10 moments for this season in the NFL. There's obviously a ton of more topics that we could have discussed, but I'm sure there are other topics that even may have been more deserving. But at the end of the day, those were just the 10 that stood out to us. You guys can feel free to let me know what y'all's top 10 moments are or whatever moment. You don't necessarily have to be 10 moments. It could just be one moment, right? But let us know what your craziest moment was that you thought was in the NFL this season. Maybe it was a good thing, maybe it was a bad thing, right? But there's just so much going on this NFL season. Uh, yeah, it's been a wild ride, man. Like I said, we started this show just before the season kicked off. We've been going live every single week since then, and we will continue to do that even throughout the off season. So we just appreciate everything you know that you guys have done for us as the audience, right? Providing us with likes and comments and follows. Um, Please go and subscribe to the YouTube channel. If you go to YouTube at both ends of the table, that's where you can find us at. You can subscribe. You can hit the notifications bell to be notified every time we go live. We typically try to go live on Mondays and Fridays. We're obviously here on TikTok on TikTok Live. We don't really do the whole TikTok Live thing too often, but if and when we can, we'll definitely try. And but yeah, it's been fun. It's been great. I will look forward to seeing you guys on Friday. And again, just drop some comments down below and let us know what you guys think. So we'll leave it there. You guys all have a great night and hope you guys had a happy new year.